I think there's a moment in every woman's life when the people she loves the most reveal themselves to be strangers in disguise. A moment when you realize the warmth you believed in, the protection you counted on, the bonds you thought were unbreakable, were never truly yours. That moment came for me on a day that should have been filled with laughter, with joy, with celebration. But instead, it became the day my family turned against me. And it started with a wedding, my sister's wedding. I can still remember that morning. The golden light spilling through my window, the faint scent of jasmine floating in the air. Normally, mornings like this make you feel alive, full of possibilities. But that morning, I felt hollow. There was a pit in my chest, a quiet unease I couldn't explain. I had woken up with a sense that something had shifted, though I couldn't have told anyone what. Maybe it was intuition. Or maybe it was the small, almost imperceptible things that had been accumulating for weeks. The texts I didn't receive. The messages I ignored, the invitations that never came. My sister, Lila, had always been the star of the family. Bright, charming, radiant. People noticed her the moment she walked into a room. And I had always been the shadow behind her light. The quiet sister who listened, who smiled, who made sure everyone else was comfortable before thinking of herself. I loved her deeply. I always had. I would have done anything for her, anything at all. I had imagined this wedding for years, sitting beside her, helping her choose the flowers, the music, the dress. Late nights filled with laughter and whispered secrets about the future. That's what sisters do for each other. That's what I believed we did for each other. And yet, the universe, or perhaps my own family, had other plans. It started with a whisper. A small, seemingly insignificant conversation overheard in the kitchen. I had been pouring myself a cup of tea when I heard my mother's voice, soft and low. Almost as if she were afraid someone else might hear. She just doesn't want her there, my mother said. The words hit me like a blow I didn't see coming. I froze mid-pour, the tea spilling slightly over the edge of the cup. My hand trembled, the porcelain clinking softly against the counter. What do you mean? I whispered, though I already feared I knew the answer. My mother didn't meet my eyes. She only whispered, she thinks it'll make things tense. Lila, she doesn't want you at the wedding. The room spun. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, rapid, uneven. The air itself seemed heavier. I wanted to speak, to shout, to demand answers, but my voice caught somewhere in my chest. It was as if the words themselves had been trapped inside me for years, finally refusing to come out. I remember feeling the floor beneath me, solid and unyielding, though at that moment it felt like it might collapse. The warmth of the kitchen, the familiar scent of cumin and saffron from last night's dinner, the faint sunlight streaming through the window, all of it seemed to mock me. My own home felt alien. My mother's silence was louder than any words could have been. I couldn't process it at first. I wanted to laugh, maybe even cry, but the emotion felt lodged somewhere too deep to reach. I walked to my bedroom and shut the door behind me, leaning against it until my back ached. My thoughts were a torrent of confusion and disbelief. She doesn't want me there. My own sister? She can't mean that. But she did. A few days later, my father spoke. Not with malice, not with anger, but with that quiet, almost mechanical tone that made you feel like your pain didn't exist. She's just trying to keep the wedding peaceful, he said. She thinks you bring tension. You'll understand when you're older. Understand. That word cut me deeper than any accusation could have. They weren't saying I was unwanted because I had done something wrong. They were saying I was unwanted because my presence, my very being, disrupted their carefully constructed world. I was a problem. And the people I loved most, the people I had protected, nurtured, and loved unconditionally, had decided I didn't belong. I remember walking through the house, touching walls I had grown up with, feeling the cold wood beneath my fingers. It was all familiar, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. The memories we shared, childhood games, late-night talks, birthday surprises. Whispered confessions, they all felt tainted now. Like a film reel running backward in reverse. Showing me that nothing I had believed in was real, I cried that night, quietly, into my pillow. Not in sobs that would alert anyone, not in anger or rage. Just quiet, deep, racking sorrow that pulled at my bones. And as I lay there, I began to understand something terrible about life. The people who hurt you the most are not always strangers, not always enemies. Sometimes they are the people whose love you took for granted, whose loyalty you assumed. Sometimes the betrayal comes from those whose faces you knew by heart. I couldn't speak to anyone about it. My friends would have told me to fight, to confront, to demand justice. But I didn't have the energy. I couldn't. I felt as though I had been drained of every ounce of strength I possessed. The thought of speaking to my sister, of asking her why, of telling her how much it hurt, made me feel hollow, as though my words would ricochet harmlessly off a wall she had built between us. And so I waited. Weeks passed. I watched from a distance as the wedding preparations moved forward. I saw pictures of flowers being arranged, invitations being sent to cousins and friends I barely knew. I saw social media posts of Lila trying on her dresses, laughing, glowing with excitement. And all the while, I remained invisible. Not absent, invisible, unseen, unacknowledged. There's a certain kind of pain that comes with invisibility. It's not sharp or acute. It doesn't scream. It doesn't make your hands shake or your knees buckle. It lingers quietly, a shadow in your chest that expands to fill your rib cage, your stomach, your throat. It makes you question your worth, your value, your right to exist, and yet, paradoxically, it also teaches you things about yourself that nothing else can. I began to see my own life clearly, without the haze of my family's expectations or my sister's brilliance. I began to understand the quiet ways I had compromised myself. The moments I had muted my own voice to make space for others. I realized, painfully, that my love, my loyalty, my presence, things I had always given freely, had been taken for granted. I spent nights thinking about what I wanted, about who I was outside of this family, outside of this dynamic that had treated me like a ghost. I thought about my work, my dreams, my passions. And slowly, a new thought began to take root. Maybe it wasn't about being invited. Maybe it was about being seen, really seen, for the first time. I tried reaching out to my sister once, sending a message that I had rehearsed countless times. I'd love to be there for you. Please let me know if you need me. But the reply never came. Not even a polite decline. Silence. Cold. Impenetrable silence. The first time I truly felt anger was the night I discovered that the wedding invitations had been sent carefully, meticulously, to everyone else. Every relative, every cousin, every friend, every stranger I had barely met. Except me. I sat in my room, the envelope unopened on my desk. My hands shook as I traced the edges. My chest felt tight, my throat dry. And in that moment, I realized something profound and terrible my family had chosen. They had made a deliberate decision. They had actively excluded me. Not by accident, not by oversight. By choice. That realization hit me harder than any slap could have. And yet, as much as it hurt, I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at the invitation, the paper seeming heavier than any burden I had ever carried. I thought about the little girl I had been. The girl who had braided her sister's hair, sewn tiny costumes for school plays, stayed awake to comfort her through nightmares. I thought about the teenager who had covered for her mistakes, taken her side in fights, and believed, foolishly, that love was enough to keep them together. And I realized it hadn't been enough. Love wasn't enough. Not for them. Not for this. And then, as the hours passed, a strange clarity began to settle in me. A quiet, determined clarity. If they had chosen to erase me, if they had decided that my presence was a burden, then I would no longer measure my worth by their choices. I would no longer define myself through their approval. That night, I made a silent promise to myself I would endure this pain. I would sit with it, breathe it in, understand it, but I would not let it destroy me. I would not let it shape the woman I was to become. I would find my own worth, my own strength, my own life, and maybe someday, when they realized what they had lost, it would be too late. The weeks leading up to the wedding were the longest of my life. I walked through my days like a ghost, participating in life while remaining unseen. I attended work, I cooked my meals, I spoke to friends who had no idea the storm raging inside me. I went through the motions, outwardly calm, inwardly shattered. And in that solitude, I began to learn something extraordinary, that heartbreak could be both a prison and a teacher, a wound and a guide. Every small victory, every quiet moment of self-discovery, every decision to honor myself in the face of rejection became a brick in a foundation I had never realized I was building. And though the wedding loomed, a glittering symbol of everything I had been denied, I began to understand that the life I was creating for myself would, in the end, outshine the one that had tried to erase me. There's something strange about pain. It crushes you, but it also clears you. For the first time in my life, I saw my family without the blur of loyalty. I saw their favoritism, their neglect, their selfishness. I saw the parts of myself I had buried just to make space for their needs. And something inside me shifted. The week of the wedding, I packed a bag, not to run away, but to step into a version of myself I had long abandoned. I took a job offer in another city, one I had been too afraid to accept because my family needed me close. Turns out, no one needed me at all. I moved into a small apartment with peeling paint and a window that stuck every time you tried to open it, but it was mine, and that was enough. I started working. Hard, harder than I ever had. Days blurred into nights. Nights blurred into mornings. Slowly, the ache in my chest turned into a quiet fire. I grew. I learned. I became someone I didn't think I could be, confident, capable, calm. People at work began to notice me, call me valuable, call me essential. Words I never heard at home. Months passed, then a year, and one day, out of the blue, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Lila. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Paper thin, trembling around the edges. "Can we talk?" she asked. Every version of my past rose up inside me. The child who adored her, the sister who supported her, the woman she abandoned. I told her yes. When she arrived at my apartment, she looked different. The glow she once carried so effortlessly had dimmed. Her eyes were tired. Her smile was fragile. And for the first time in my life, she looked at me. Truly looked. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have pushed you out. I thought you'd steal the attention. I thought people would like you more." I blinked, stunned. All this time, my invisibility wasn't because I wasn't enough. It was because she feared I was too much. "I was jealous of you," she said. "You were always stronger, always calmer. People trusted you." I hated it. The words were heavy. They fell between us like broken glass. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply breathed, because in that moment, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel revenge. Not the way movies show it. No dramatic triumph. No satisfaction in her regret. I only felt free. Her apology didn't fix the past. It didn't erase the hurt, but it showed me something important. I had become someone she couldn't overshadow, someone she couldn't control, someone she had to face. And that was the most poetic revenge of all. Months after our conversation, my family held a small gathering, a simple dinner, for the first time since the wedding. We were all in the same room. People stared at me differently now, not with pity, not with dismissal, with recognition. I had changed, and they felt it. My father hugged me longer than usual. My mother asked questions she had never asked before about my job, my life, my dreams. Lila stayed close, quieter than I had ever seen her. There was a moment that evening, a slow, almost cinematic moment where I looked around the room and realized I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't crave their validation. I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the silent sister, the invisible woman. I was someone who had rebuilt herself from the ashes of abandonment. Later that night, as I stepped outside into the cool air, Lila joined me. Do you ever think about what could have been? She whispered. I nodded. Sometimes. Do you hate me for it? She asked. I looked at her, really looked, and the truth rose softly inside me. No, I said. I don't hate you. I just finally love myself more. And there it was, the closure I never expected. Offered in the simplest words, she cried then, small, quiet tears she tried to hide. And for the first time, I didn't reach out to comfort her, not out of cruelty, but because this time she needed to sit with her own choices. I had already sat with mine. Walking back to my apartment that night, I felt a peace I had never known. Not the peace that comes from fixing relationships, but the peace that comes from fixing yourself. My family didn't change because they realized I deserved better. They changed because I finally believed it, and that belief became my freedom. This is the story of the day my family turned against me and the days that followed, when I chose myself instead, because sometimes the most beautiful revenge is becoming the woman they never believed you could be, and sometimes the healing you never received becomes the power you never expected.